Are your kitchen and bathroom way overdue for a remodel? Well, I got the guy for you. Call John Sellers at First Response Contracting, 484-256-7136. Both residential and commercial services, and he's licensed and insured. Call him at 484-256-7136. First Response Contracting. Hello, this is Brad Weisman. You're listening to Real Estate and You. We're back in the studio. We are here to talk about a topic that you are probably hearing a lot about out there. And if you have stucco on your house, you will probably want to turn this off because you're going to puke in your mouth. But no, this is a really good show. It's called YUCCO Stucco, and I have I won't say expert because he told me not to say this, but we have Rick Herbert here from L&L. Is it construction? Is it construction group? Is it L&L group? What is it called now?
It's L&L General Contractors.
General Contractors. There we go. I didn't say that one at all. I got them all except for that one. But no, Rick is the person that we go to when we have questions about stucco and a lot of different things. Rick does everything, but one of the things that you excel in and that we feel that people feel comfortable working with you on is stucco.
Yes.
And it's a big thing today. We're seeing a lot of issues with stucco of work that was done in the past.
Yes.
People thought this stuff was going to last forever, and it didn't.
Correct.
So tell me what's going on. Give me an overview of what's happening with stucco a little bit.
Okay. The installation method that was used years ago. Let's say years ago, maybe say 15 years ago or more.
Right.
The installation method that was used at that time was improper.
Okay.
Okay. So
the whole thing was improper.
Well, what we found out was there was two big issues.
Okay.
Number one, the way windows and doors were installed at that time, looks like it was missing some pan flashing.
Okay.
And it even though window and door manufacturers might have said, hey, we require head flashing.
Okay.
That wasn't done consistently.
Right. Is it to cut costs? Is that why this stuff happens?
It looks like that.
Yeah.
So I would say we've seen a lot more evidence of it on a track builder.
Okay.
Okay. But, in some very large custom homes, we've seen it also. And in some cases, I couldn't answer that question, except it doesn't make much sense.
So not all stucco failures look the same.
No, quite different. So there's a couple things. Is number one, when the stucco is installed, there's requirements today. So the requirements today are, there's multiple layers of vapor barriers. There's a rain screen, which is like a drainage mat. And then there's a required thickness of the stucco itself, the base coat, the parge coat, and the finish coat. So altogether, it's about 1 inch thick today.
Oh, wow.
Where the last house that we did, the remediation work, which is removal, the stucco, the full thickness of stucco was 1/2 inch.
Oh, wow.
So that's half the thickness that it is
today. Yeah.
So, and if you have that, so the body of that stucco needs to have strength.
Yeah.
It's held together with wire lath, or in some cases it's, exterior or EIFS, EIFS.
Yep.
Is more of a
isn't it more pliable? Isn't it?
It's a foam-based stucco.
Okay.
So there's three different things that we should start with. Cementitious stucco.
Cementitious
stucco.
Hey, Hugo, write that down. I want to use that for a lot of things.
That sounds fancy.
Can I just use that for anything, you think?
Yes.
Cementitious. That's very cementitious of you.
That
you like that?
Good.
That worked pretty good. Yeah. Well, go ahead. What are the other ones?
Then you have a hard coat stucco, which it's stucco over top of a cement base, but has an elastomeric finish.
Okay,
which is flexible.
Okay.
And then you have your EIFS, which is a foam base.
And that's the one we see a lot of, right?
Yeah. So you're like, for instance, example, a lot of times office buildings.
Yes.
In this vicinity will have exterior insulation board up, very thick, sometimes 1.5 inches. And then you'll see they'll have a gray mortar coat over top of that. And then they put its synthetic finish on top. So it's a good product. It's meant to be, durable, but it's also meant to have insulation factor.
Okay.
So, but stucco itself I feel is a good product.
Right.
It looks as if the products that were used
weren't used right.
And the masons at the time, some of them didn't do 3 coats. So when I say 3 coats, when you put up your wire lath and you do a scratch coat, that's considered one process.
Gotcha.
The next coat will be your brown coat, almost like a plaster coat. That gives you your thickness in your body of the stucco. And the last coat is your finish coat. It's the the creamy cement finish or the creamy like elastomeric finish.
Yeah.
And if that was done properly with flashing done the right way, you you might have some issues if it's excessive cracking, but you typically wouldn't have what we have today.
Yeah. And there's some really bad pictures I've seen. I mean, you did my parents' house.
Yes.
And, I saw what was behind their wall. And that's the thing, too. It's you never know how bad it is.
No.
I mean, you can do those core samples. And I saw you did that with my parents' house. Yeah. And he was having an issue opening his windows.
Yeah.
Because it was actually swelling, right? I guess it was swelling the wood that much that his vinyl windows were starting to come in and he couldn't get the windows up. Is that something that if somebody has that situation, they should look into if they have stucco, right?
Yeah. So today they require us to have an expansion joint around every window or door at the soffit areas, wherever stucco would meet a dissimilar material like wood, PVC, and it's about 3/8 of an inch thick. That expansion, and we have to have backer rod in there and caulk, so it allows for that movement because that window when it heats up is going to move.
Yeah, it's vinyl.
And today you see there's a lot of black windows out there.
Yeah,
they're really moving.
Oh, I didn't even think about that because of the heat.
Yeah, the heat. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So it's important. It's not one thing, and we've seen homes that were done in Chester County, for example, that one house is completely ripped off.
Yeah,
the next house, 2 out of 4 sides were absolutely fine when they did the moisture test, and two of the elevations had to come off.
Yeah,
and in that situation, what we've seen is the way if the sun warms up the home, if it dries it out,
interesting.
See less issues.
So like a southern exposure area might be better. Yeah. So I'm just going to say hypothetically, I have a house that's just full stucco, all 4 sides. Yes. What am I looking for? Now I get into my house, I listen to this podcast, I go back to my house, I start crying first, actually. Right. But then after that, I go, okay, what am I looking for? Okay. What are the signs?
What I would say to you, if anything is over 15 years old, I would have it tested by a third party.
Okay, and how does that work?
Well, what I believe is that I believe that stucco is also a storm chasing contractor's dream.
Okay, got it.
So you almost want to do a little separation. You want to hire a third party testing company that's not
a contractor. Got it.
So you don't want Rick Herbert to say that house needs to be ripped down without having someone else providing the data.
Gotcha. And then that makes sense for anything that you do. Don't hire the contractor, hire the expert at it first, and then call the contractor to repair the issue. That makes sense to me. Yeah.
Because a lot of times the testing companies now will give very good data to support what needs to happen. And it gives the homeowner just a better view of do I want to rip this off?
Right.
Or do I want to do repair? And it comes down to a lot of times, do you want a warranty?
Yeah, right.
Because if we do a repair, and it's just a repair in a certain area, there's no warranty involved.
Now, what you're saying is that I'm just taking a certain area, there's maybe a crack in it, or it's showing something going on. Yes. You're saying you'll repair it, but you're not tearing it all off.
Right. We may cut an area out below the window. It's 3 foot by 3 foot. And repair the damaged wood, put it back together, and then basically just re-stucco that face of the area.
Gotcha.
But we really haven't changed the process of what caused the leak to happen.
Gotcha.
And we've done that, and when we do that, of course, the cost is less. But there's no warranty.
Right.
If we do a remediation, for me, the remediation means top to bottom, left to right on that specific elevation.
Gotcha.
Does not mean that the entire house has to come off.
Right.
It just means that. And what that does is, then I can have somebody else. I could have a borough township. I could have like a company like Craft Codes, for example.
Sure.
They could inspect it.
Right.
It was done properly to today's code standard.
Gotcha. And then that way it goes back together, and then you warrant that for a little bit of time, whatever it is. Yeah. Okay. Exactly. Interesting. And I know with my dad's, it wasn't easy you guys knew where the issue was, but it wasn't like it was like an easy fix of finding the problem. Right. It was a water problem coming off the roof, from what I remember. And I remember also you saying to my dad, it's going to be here, here, and here. And he's like, I don't know, and then he would call me and I'd say, I'm pretty sure Rick is right about that because I've seen it happen before. And at the end of the day, their house looks amazing. It looks like it was never an issue. And I saw that you guys tore it all the way down to the wood. And I remember seeing the wood was basically put your finger through it. I mean, that's the part that blows my mind.
Yeah. Well, there's one thing when plywood is bad, but there's another thing when the structural wood behind it's bad.
That's a problem.
That's holding up the exterior of your home.
Absolutely.
And that's where we get a lot of issues with pests. Ants. Really do a lot of damage. Once the wood gets soft, termites.
Yeah, then they love it.
And they just tear it apart.
Yeah. So it's like kind of like you're kind of feeding it to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We found an issue that really kind of stands out, and I'll bring it to you. So when homes were built, say 15 years or more ago,
Yeah.
they were using OSB, which is oriented strand board. It's a basically shavings of plywood glued together.
Yep.
And it forms a plywood sheet.
Yep.
It is about half the cost, maybe more than half the cost of a traditional piece of plywood.
Yep.
So it was very common for people to use that. Well, it's a sponge.
Yeah. Right.
So I'm not telling you that's what caused the stucco problems, but any moisture that gets behind the stucco now, it just
soaks it in. Yeah. It's wicking then too.
The vapor barriers that they used back then compared to the ones that are using now, the standard is quite different.
Yeah.
They're much better.
Like a house wrap type thing?
Yeah.
Or Gotcha.
And a lot of times they'll want us to do 2 layers today.
Oh, wow.
So one's almost like a sacrificial layer, and then the other layer is the protection. Rain screens, like I said. And then the important part is like around that television screen right there, if that was a window, what code requires today, which is outstanding for like your cavity. So if you have a window that's outside the cavity before you put it in, the way we waterproof the entire cavity.
Yeah.
So water does get to it.
Yeah.
It's meant that it can drain out. It doesn't go anywhere near your wood or the structure of your home.
Yeah.
So I like the process and it does work.
Yeah. Okay. So, there was always everybody kept saying, well, it was never meant to be used here. It should be in Florida. It was meant to be in Florida because our temperatures are varying too much here in the Northeast. Is there any kind of validity to that?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I see here's the issue when water gets in. So if you take a cup or a gallon of water and you pour it on something that's porous, like a stucco wall, and then it snap freezes. So when water freezes, it expands.
Right.
And that's where we see cracking, especially in some stuccos. Okay.
Right.
Let's say some like cement stucco.
Yeah.
I think is an outstanding product. But when you get it wet, if it snap freezes, now it's not a traditional like. No, it's like we get around here. Sometimes we get 45 degrees and rain, and that night it's down into the teens. Absolutely.
And that's definitely a quick freeze.
And if you look at, there's a stucco industry standard that basically says, a hairline crack in stucco is typically normal because homes do a little settling. And when that happens, that's going to occur. It's when it grows.
Yeah.
And what we always tell people, if there is a hairline crack or it gets a little bigger, you should at least do some maintenance with that.
Gotcha.
Sealing it, caulking it, whatever.
Right.
I know it's not always.
But then it doesn't look attractive.
It doesn't.
That's the only thing I got to say is then you kind of point out where the crack is when you do that. Yeah, that's the one thing.
We get asked all the time, is it okay to paint the stucco? And we tell people that elastomeric coating, which is a great type of a paint to put on stucco, it's a great product. And it is breathable. If you read the specifications, it's a breathable product. But I'm still cautious to tell anybody, put something more on top of it to trap the moisture in.
Yeah, right.
Well, the reason I say it, when we take stucco off, what we see is just because the product on the outside and the house on the inside, whether it's warm or cool, wherever it gets sandwiched together, we just see so much destruction.
That's where the temperature difference is. Yeah. It's like anything. I mean, my dad talks about this in my house because he says down the base because he does HVAC. Yeah. And he said, my basement's so cold because I have the air conditioning kicking upstairs. Yeah. He actually tells me to turn my electric baseboard on a little bit. Yeah. He said, because what I'm doing is I'm creating a situation where it's so cold down there, but it's dry cold, and it could be creating condensation behind my drywall. Absolutely. And I'm like, what, I'm going to turn my baseboard heating? He goes, yes, to dry the air out because it's actually, you're creating a cold, damp space. Yeah. And so that's interesting. So my thing is this. I remember when I was building my house, if you wanted to upgrade to stucco, it was expensive. Mm-hmm. So, a lot of houses are vinyl siding. Yes. And now what's amazing is I'm seeing like over here in Spring Ridge, they're replacing all the stucco with siding. Yes. Is siding okay?
Yes. Yeah.
It is.
Well, one of the reasons why siding is okay is because if you see the way it's installed, it's installed a lot of times horizontal or vertical. Yeah. But it's installed that when it's nailed, it's not nailed super tight.
Right.
So
it can move.
It can move. It can have, and behind it, there's a decent vapor barrier. And those vapor barriers are tied in the flashings. Yep. To protect the windows and the doors or any gaps. And what that does is just allows moisture to travel out, drain out, or it doesn't sandwich it so much that it doesn't allow it to dry.
And it also breathes, doesn't it? I would think because there's air behind the vinyl siding.
So we do a lot of, we have a lot of clients that have us take the stucco or stone veneer off the walls, and then we will do James Hardy cement board siding, a favorite. A great product, and so Wolf PVC portrait siding. Yep. So these are upscale siding products.
Yeah, they look nice.
And in some cases, some of the communities that we work in now, if they have a nicer home, they're requiring these type of products.
Yes.
But what we've seen lately is like CertainTeed has just come out with a more upscale, wide plank, beautiful vinyl siding.
Yeah.
It's insulated.
Oh, that's great.
And it's called CertaPlank. I mean, I just did a job with it.
Nice.
We were really happy.
Yeah.
And the nice part was the labor was a lot. So the material was about the same price as the upscale products, but the labor was better.
Got it. Because it doesn't take as long time. Because it's not all those processes.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you don't. Now with the stucco, when you're seeing all those processes, do you have to come back each time to put those different layers on, or do you do?
So you're supposed to allow it to dry in between.
Right. Okay?
So the stucco coat. So when you do a scratch coat and you let it dry for a day, it allows the cement to kind of open up if there's any little hairline cracks. And then the next coat, when it goes in, the cream of the cement, fills in those cracks, bonds it together, makes it strong. And then the final coat, which is your finish coat, you let the brown coat, the middle coat, I say dry out for a couple of days.
Yeah.
And you put that final coat on, it just knits it very well. So when you try to take it off, if someone really did it well, it's difficult.
You can tell. You can tell it's put on right.
It's not easy.
Interesting. Really interesting. Yeah. So I'm building a new house today.
Yes.
Do I use stucco? And another thing, what about the applied stone?
Well, I would share with you the applied stone is equally the same problem as
it is.
You know, so a lot of times it hides the problem not easier. It hides the problem more than the stucco does.
Gotcha.
You don't see it
because it's different colors on the outside, so you don't see any kind of mold coming through.
Yep, exactly. You don't see that. So if there are cracks in the stone veneer, a lot of times it happens. It forms along the crack of around the mortar joint.
Yeah.
And so you may see it, you may not. Okay.
Yeah.
But what we tell people the same thing is that, testing is a great idea, especially below your windows, down at your sill plate. So I've had clients call and say, well, this report's a good report. My entire house, all the windows up top, they tested well. I got a couple problems down at the bottom.
Yeah.
And when we dug into it, so all the water starts at the top, saturates the stone.
Oh my gosh.
And then it comes down and it gets jammed up right at where the basement foundation meets the first floor. And that's dangerous because what happens is when we take it off, we realize that, oh my God, the sill plate, which holds up all the vertical studs, is rotted through.
Oh, geez.
And that happens a lot of times.
Yeah, that's tough to replace.
So we have to go inside the home into the basement and basically jack up
oh my gosh,
the ceiling a little bit to get them out.
Jeez. See, this is why it's called YUCCO Stucco. I'm telling you now. But you said but it's not a bad product. It's just you got to do it right. Yeah. You got to do it right.
We just bought a home here in Wyomissing, and the chimney, the exterior columns to our we have a enclosed porch out back.
Yeah.
And 2 fireplaces inside. We used stucco. We had a designer helping us with what she wanted it to look like.
Yeah.
And it came out beautifully.
Awesome.
So it's one of those things, but we followed code, had it inspected.
There you go.
And then, but I believe in the product. I'm a mason by trade, but I also know that, to your point, you had a question before, like, were they trying to save money? It looks like it. Yeah. Because the components that I am adding to it right now, which I'm not adding, I'm just doing what's supposed to be done, they don't cost a lot.
Right. It's just that they weren't doing it. It's amazing.
You go faster.
Well, and I think too, back when they started doing stucco here, I think maybe it was coming from probably down south was where the idea was we're coming from. Oh, yeah. And then they're like, oh, we can do this. We got this. This is no big deal. Yeah. And now that's that system of doing that cheaper way or that bad workmanship way, that can't be done anymore. It just doesn't work.
No. Well, if you go to Arizona, New Mexico, any of the southern, even in I shouldn't say it. In the Carolinas is where it really started. The damage really showed up in a big way. There's a lot of humidity there. It's nice and warm.
Yep.
But the drier climates, you would find, did well with it.
Yeah, because like Arizona, like you said,
absolutely.
I mean, they don't get the moisture we get. So it's not going to be trapped behind there.
Yes.
Amazing. Totally amazing. So one thing I'm really happy about is actually I'm happy that my house is completely vinyl because I was too cheap 22 years ago to put anything on but vinyl. And I haven't had any problems. Knock on wood.
Thank God.
So there's one other thing I want to bring up before we let you go because Hugo had a question about it and I was kind of asked about the luxury vinyl. Right, we were talking about that a little bit. That's a newer product.
Yes.
Where do you see that? Where are we going with that? Is it really everything it's cracked up to be?
Well, we have great success with it. We use it quite a bit. But what I think everybody does have to understand that it's not waterproof.
It's not waterproof.
Okay, so what does that mean? But if you have I have an older dog, my wife.
Okay.
So what's he going to do? He's peeing on the floor.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yep.
So on a luxury vinyl plank. Certainly you can clean it up, but if you leave it, if God forbid you miss an accident and it stays there, it will do its damage.
Oh, what, really?
Yeah, it will do its damage. So I know that they say it's waterproofed.
Yeah, yeah.
But what I'm the guy who rips it up.
Yep.
So I've seen what happens when they say it's weatherproofed and something was wet, and I don't know how long, maybe it was 2 days, 3 days, or a month, but taking it up and the corners were curled.
Oh, wow.
And it lifted a little bit and it starts to delaminate.
Interesting.
So,
so it's not PP proof.
No, not at all.
It's not PP proof. Okay. So then, and what's amazing,
and the cementitious product.
The cementitious product. We're going to have to use that word more and more as we go. But hey, I want to thank you for coming on the show today, man. Yeah. I know you're doing a great job out there. We use Rick for all kinds of things. Susan and I do. I know our company does. He's the one guy that actually calls you back when you actually call for an issue or you have you want to get pricing or something. So definitely look at L&L. And then what did you say? L&L, you're using not construction.
General contracting.
General contracting. That's what it is. Yes. So doing a great job. We really appreciate it so much. So that's it. There was YUCCO Stucco. If you have any questions, get in touch with Rick Herbert. If you need his information, just let me know. I will get it to you. You can talk to me through Facebook or text 484-256-5836, and we'll get you all the information you need. All right, that's about it. We'll see you later. Are your kitchen and bathroom remodels a little overdue? Well, now's your chance to call First Response Contracting. John Sellers will take care of you. 484-256-7136. They do residential and commercial, and they're licensed and insured. Give them a call at 484-256-7136.